Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Best Darn Everything, or maybe this week, Worst Darn Everything, because it was a pretty bad day for a pretty large fandom demographic yesterday. We're going to talk about it. We are actually going to call this the funeral, I guess we'll say, of the Dallas Cowboys this year, because they are once again dead in the first round of the playoffs. And joining me today, somebody who's cared about that a lot longer and is probably hurting a lot worse than I am today, your co-host with the most and Cowboys fan diehard, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
Well, we talked about recording last night after the game, and I said, well, let me give myself time to make sure I'm actually as angry as I am right now. And while I've calmed down a little bit, I'm still angry. I'm still very angry. It's not that it hurts worse than it does for somebody like you. It's that like you almost expect it at this point, which is a very dangerous thought. That's the part that angers me more than anything, is that like it's just what they've been doing for the last 25 years. So, it is what it is, I guess. But I hate that excuse. We've got plenty to talk about. This is my what went wrong with the Cowboys episode. It's Miles's funeral episode. Not Miles's funeral, but his funeral of the Cowboys.
I'm dead.
He's a ghost. Let me go ahead and throw it back to him. The man, the myth, the Jerry Jones super fan number one. It is.
Oh, man. Yeah, dude. So Cowboys yesterday, ugly game, really, too. They lost to the San Francisco 49ers in the first round of the playoffs, which is pretty much a trope of the Dallas Cowboys, I think you would say at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dax won one playoff game and Romo won one playoff game. So people that say they haven't won in 15 years or whatever, 11 years, that's incorrect. But, it still doesn't feel right. Like, and I didn't expect them to win the Super Bowl this year. The NFC is very, very tough. Like, all the other teams left are really, really good teams, but I just feel like
we expected them to lose to one of the Bays, right? Like Tampa or Green, not the team that barely snuck into the playoffs themselves.
Yeah, well, and to be fair, you got to give San Francisco credit. They played a hell of a game. They looked way better on defense at most of the game than we did until Micah Parsons came back in. Like, San Francisco showed up to play, and the Cowboys never really got their footing underneath them, it looked like, and didn't know what they were doing a lot of the times, which has been a problem in the past. And the team's been playing so well, like meshing defense together, that like you think they would have showed up a little bit better, but I've been saying for weeks, all you have to do to beat the Cowboys is run it up the middle every single time. And
except when there's only 17 seconds left and you don't have any timeouts at the last play of the fucking game, maybe that's not a good time for that.
It's 14 seconds. Yeah, that's one of my biggest talking points about this episode. I have a few thoughts on that I know we're going to have to talk about, but this was just it's almost like we went into the game with one. It's like a video game when you have a character that can read all the weaknesses of the boss. And it's like San Francisco just had that and just only used those attacks on them. And
yeah, they spammed them.
But it was also
like what was it, like the original Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter maybe, where you could just like certain characters you could just duck and do the sweep and like nobody could block it, so you could just beat people in the arcade in the cheapest way.
It's like that, or in every Spider-Man game, you know that you're going to use the scenery to defeat Rhino, and the Cowboys are Rhino, and you just have to
just let them run into the wall.
Run into the wall and hurt themselves.
Have Dak and Zeke just run into a wall over and over again.
Or, they should have the defense jumping off sides the whole time. Like it's the Rhino.
One second. That's one thing that pissed me off. Two things that pissed me off. First of all, I'm going to say that for now on, any of my friends that are Cowboys fans, you are not getting Christmas presents until January mid, because I could have saved so much money by buying your shit on clearance. But the Cowboys yesterday, one of the things that gave me just like, how sometimes you just get those weird bad feelings, and I'm like all day I'm like, the Cowboys I think actually have this, they're the favorite going in. They've been
it's the team that I would want to play. If you gave me a list of all the teams
you would want to play, exactly.
I'd say let's go San Francisco.
The moment that I got that like icky feeling where I was like, I suddenly don't feel good about this game, was 1 second in, literally, and it's because they jumped off sides, and I'm like, guys, guys, you've had like 18 weeks now, 19 weeks now to work this bullshit out. You're $1 million fucking paid athletes. Like, even if you have the minimum contract in the NFL, you are making a shit ton of money. For the love of fucking God, learn how to count so that you don't jump off sides.
Well, the thing with that was the first one was Randy Gregory, and he did it twice yesterday. He's been doing that at least once every game for the last few weeks, but it's because he'll start trying to time the snap count, and when he gets it right, oh man, he destroys the quarterback. So I understand why it happened, but after it happened the first time, it's like, okay, maybe that's a little of playoff jitters. Like, get that out of your system, and it's not needed right now. Like, I don't need you to be 1,000% aggressive when the score is 0-0.
Right. Yeah. It
like,
felt like, I guess it's like, that's cool to like, if that's kind of like his go-to thing, that's great. But it does not feel good to start your game being -5 yards, like, or, whatever that penalty is. Like, it's, and like, just in general, I think it said that the Cowboys, like, first of all, the Cowboys had like a bunch of records this year, and most of them were actually good. Like, a lot of offensive records. They had like either the best in Cowboys history or the second best in Cowboys history. But I'm pretty sure one of those things was also penalty yards, because they had a ton of them.
They were basically the most penalized team in football this year, which that's one of the notes that I have. Like, that's pretty much for our adult life. That's been true a lot of the Cowboys. They get a lot of penalties. They always have. And I'm being very, very calm right now, but inside I am fuming right now because I'm honestly in the same boat as you, Miles. Like, you're a fucking professional. You should know how to keep this in check. And whether or not the refs may not call certain things and do call certain things, the fact that you make it so easy for them to call so many things is what's frustrating. And like that earlier in the fourth quarter where it looked like we had a stop and then there was a hands to the face call. I think that was Gallimore or somebody that did that. Like, we had them beat. We were going to get the ball back with plenty of time and actually have a chance. And you do the stupid hands to the face call, get an automatic first down when we had them stopped. And it's like, and that's after we got bailed out with that chain, I think no, that was before the
that chain thing. We need to save that for that's at the very end. And that's the part where I was boiling. I think we should probably back up because I think it's kind of funny, your demeanor right now, to me, just because I know how like passionate you are about the Cowboys in general. You're one of the grown men in real life I've seen cry over a professional sports game, which is it's a good thing to do. I enjoy passion.
Cry over a sports game.
Back in college, you and Mike would cry all the goddamn time about everything. Jesus Christ! The Cowboys lost in the first round. Meh. That's you. But it's fine. I respect it.
I will say I've teared up 2 times. Like, I actually teared up from sports. No, 3 times. Game 6. For the Texas Rangers, when Nelson Cruz missed that fly ball. I don't think there's any Texas fan that actually likes all Texas sports that did not tear up when he missed that fly ball. That, like, you just felt the whole life get sucked out of the whole fan base. When the Mavs won, that was kind of a redemption moment, especially against the team they beat. And then I did tear up 4 or 5 years ago when the Cowboys lost to Green Bay in the playoffs, because I realized it was the last football game my dad was going to have seen. And that was literally about 2 or 3 weeks before he passed away. So those are the 3 times that I know I teared up. If you say I teared up,
not in college though, so it could have been whiskey fueled tears, maybe. I don't know, but I swear it happened. I'm sticking by it. Okay. I do think though we should kind of preface this conversation a little bit just to get it all out of the table. You're a diehard fan. Like, you've been watching the Cowboys since probably before you can remember with your dad, and as long as I have known you, you have been a Cowboys fan. I have not been a football fan in general in years, but it turns out if a certain large like chain of sports bars wants to pay me a lot of money to put on a Cowboys jersey and pretend to be a fan to hype up the bar, I'm a big fucking supporter. And, I joke about that, and that's true. Honestly, there is a lot of truth in what I just said. I didn't really have a passion for football. I had a passion for getting a paycheck for watching football. But something funny happened to me this year. I think it's a combination of being in that live high energy area.
The camaraderie of the fellow man.
and yes, that, and also, as we've also talked about on this show, it was my first season playing fantasy football, which means that suddenly I'm going from not caring at all and hardly ever watching football to watching literally every game with a live crowd and having, small stakes, but stakes in almost every game, to the point where like I'm getting more and more invested. And I actually think I told you yesterday during the game, I was surprised at how angry I was actually getting at the like I like during the regular season, I'm like, oh yeah, we're making the playoffs. This is great. Great. I even put a $20 bet that the Cowboys would win the Super Bowl when I was in Vegas back in March. So like I had all this like weird stuff.
The stakes were never higher.
Yeah, for me, literally, I had like $30 writing on this season. Literally, the stakes are never higher, and like it went from being like a thing where I was doing a job of hyping up people to be, supporting the Cowboys and getting the energy going. And I'll tell y'all, the reason they do that is so that the people around me will consume more alcohol and food and spend more time and money in that bar. Capitalism, it's dangerous. But it also kind of had that weird splashback effect where I'm like, oh shit, now I'm legitimately emotionally invested.
You were working yourself over.
Yeah, I worked myself into a shoot. Yes, as our wrestling fans that to listen, that's exactly what happened. I worked myself into a shoot.
So let me ask you this: does that mean you're gonna watch a little bit more football from now on, or do you have to have this job because that's the thing that actually gets you up and gets you going into it? Are you playing fantasy again next year?
I'm definitely going to play fantasy again next year. So those are two very different questions I can answer. Let me answer the fantasy one first, because I actually just really like talking about this. I've told you this personally, but never talked about it on here. I actually look at playing fantasy football a lot more like I do playing a deck building like tabletop game. Like there's a Rick and Morty one I like. I'm trying to think of like a really popular one that would be mainstream. But literally, if you play tabletop or board games at all, any game in which you have to like collect cards and like trade cards for better cards and like know when the right time to use certain cards, and sometimes it's better to keep them in your hand, sometimes it's better to put them on the table. That's actually the approach that I have when I'm playing fantasy football, and it makes it really fun for me. But I don't really care about the football aspect as much in that. So on that note, I will 100% be back for more fantasy football, because I had a lot of fun with that. Now, I really hope, for your other question, the full answer is I hope I'm not put in a position where I have to choose, because this was one of the best gigs I've ever had, both in how much fun it is and how well it paid. So I hope that continues into next season. But even if it doesn't, I think that there will definitely be at least an investment in certain people. Because I also watched that HBO show that goes behind the scenes, Hard Knocks, that followed the Cowboys this year. So I found myself personally invested in players like Micah Parsons, who was heavily featured on that show. And he was hilarious from like day one, because he's a rookie and he's got that like, it's almost like the memes where you see like the little dogs that are like in like the old dog pit, and he's just like making all this noise. And like, I remember there's one preseason game where he's like on the phone, like begging his coach, like, come on coach, put me in for another play. I just want one more. Come on coach. He's like, Micah, that's not how the preseason works, dude. You're done. Like, just sit down and calm down and watch the game. But I also got invested in Zeke. Probably currently, I would say either him or I really like Dak too. We're going to talk about that. I know that's going to be controversial right now. But I really like Zeke. And then Dak actually got on my radar. It was a couple years ago when during the off season, he opened up in an interview and was very vulnerable talking about mental health. Mm-hmm. And I think it was his brother maybe had committed suicide, and he talked about like the depression and the stuff that he went through. And honestly, I gained a lot of respect for him on that during that interview, and it kind of made me want to root for him more, which was made yesterday kind of suck, but it made me want to root for him more, because I thought that was very respectable, the way that he, again, was very vulnerable and allowed himself to express that, like, yeah, he's a tough, football playing quarterback dude with like, he's got like an image to protect, but he's also like, no, dude, like I struggle with depression and it's hard. Life is hard sometimes. And I think that so many people put on a front that that's not true when it absolutely is.
Especially in that world, like you said, where you're going to be the manly man and you got to say, I want to kill this guy on the other side.
So even if I don't necessarily get invested in football as hard as I did this season for obvious reasons, I think there'll at least be a part of me that'll follow those careers and those people. And obviously, if they're all three still playing for the Cowboys, that would make it mean that easier. I would make it, probably be watching the Cowboys more. Did I answer your question, or did I just dance around it creatively?
Maybe a little bit of column C. But that would mean that, like, if when Hard Knocks has their new season, whatever team they're following, you're going to want to follow a few of those players again as well.
Yes, and that's true because I actually watched they did it for the first time. I think they did a mid-season Hard Knocks this year. It was the Indianapolis Colts. And there is a couple of players on that team. Mostly it was actually the defensive players on that team that I like. Honestly, the quarterback is kind of, I don't know, religion aside. I'm biting my tongue trying to not punch at Christianity during this football episode. But him and the coaches like prayer sessions. I'm like, guys, you're adults, for the love of God. Oh, wait, what did I just say?
He lasted about 20 minutes. It's probably a record for him.
Obviously, it's almost unneeded to be said. Their rookie running back, he's like the best running back in the league this year. He's fucking incredible. He had a moment where he was picked as the Nickelodeon players, or like the Nickelodeon's Kids Choice Award winner or something of that nature. And long story short, he got slimed accepting the award. Like, he was at the training facility, and I think it's probably because of COVID or whatever. They had like his other teammates actually like slimed him. And as an old school Nickelodeon fan, that was endearing because you could see the joy in his heart when he's getting slimed. There was that moment of like, oh, you bastards. And he realized what was happening. And you could just see him light up like a Christmas tree. He was so excited about the fact that he's like, oh my God, I just got Nickelodeon slimed. And I won this cool little like splat thing that they give out.
And clearly kids are better at choosing players than adults, because if he was their choice, the second half of the season, oh my gosh, he went off Jonathan Taylor.
Dude, he was going back to the fantasy thing too, man. He was a nightmare at times. Like, if you were playing Jonathan Taylor, you did not win most games. Like, that didn't happen.
I had to play him, I think, in back-to-back weeks or with 1 week off, and I got lucky the first time. But then the second time I was playing that guy, was in the playoffs, and because of Jonathan Taylor, I got destroyed.
Yeah, makes sense. He's incredible. So yeah, I think you're right. I think that Hard Knock show is probably, for casual fans, or just, I guess if you're not a football fan at all, you're probably not going to care. But like, if you're casually invested, I think that it does make you more attached to certain players.
Well, it sounds like Miles is going to be reaching out to his employer, making sure they do that part again next year, then, at least if anything else.
Dude, we've already been campaigning for it hard.
All right. Well, this is supposed to be about burying the Cowboys and what went wrong with the Cowboys. So can we start getting a little more specific here about the issues that we're seeing with this team?
You steer this thing, El Capitan. I'm on this ride with you.
And for what it's worth, you watched more Cowboys football this year than I did, because I had times.
Jesus Christ, that's crazy.
Well, I had times where I couldn't get a good connection on. A lot of times I was watching people streaming Red Zone on Twitch. We had different TV providers for a while. I just got stuff like 3 different viewing apps set up yesterday where I could finally watch the game if they made it out of the first round. All that work for nothing. But there were times where I didn't have the ability to actually watch games, and I'm literally staring at my phone for score updates, which is very upsetting. But I feel like you will know and see a lot of this stuff because you know and saw a lot of it throughout the year. So I want to start off with the fake punt the Cowboys did in the playoff game yesterday. Fake punts, we all saw it coming. I don't know why you wouldn't expect it right then. However, there's one guy on the defense for San Francisco that doesn't do his job, lets the punter throw that nice little pass for a first down. Great, it works. I'm so super happy. But then they immediately run up to the line and try to do this, like faking them out while they keep the punting team on the field, like they're going to run some form of wildcat or something. And they're trying to throw the defense off. And the defense is just standing there like, I don't understand what you guys are doing. And then when the time starts running down, they switch back to their offense where all the players have to run off the field and on the field. And then there was a penalty there because Dak was trying to go grab the ball. It was stupid. I don't understand. You ran the fake punt. You got the first down. Put your offense back out there. Quit trying to do some other bull crap.
That to me sounds like it's a criticism more than anything of Mike McCarthy.
I don't know if that was Mike McCarthy or Bones Fossil there, but either way.
I mean, wouldn't it all essentially fall on Mike McCarthy at the end of the day? If it's a coaching, gripe essentially or criticism.
I feel like with McCarthy, he's more of a general consensus. Like, I think he asked other people, or they'll be like, hey, coach, why don't we just do this? And he's like, oh, okay, let's try that. So, yes, it does fall on him. And honestly, I'm not the biggest McCarthy fan. I feel like in a lot of ways he has some similarities to Jason Garrett as from an emotional standpoint where he's not very exciting to listen to. And if you ever listen to if you listen to sports talk radio, whenever he does his live interviews or like his recaps where people ask him questions about the game the day before, he's literally doing that while he's listening to the questions, and it literally sounds like he needs.
Damn it! I hope the noise reduction I run doesn't pull that out. Otherwise, it's gonna be really awkward when people are just like, "Was there supposed to be something I heard there?"
I was deep breathing into the microphone. But
they'll hear it. They'll hear it.
McCarthy has trouble breathing during those press conferences, and it's.
I don't know if we should make fun of a man for that, honestly.
But they should turn his microphone off while the question's being asked. If I can hit the mute button, someone's had to tell him. They make fun of him for it.
Are you sure they're not just interviewing a warthog at the same time? Like maybe it's like a dual interview happening.
I don't know, maybe, but making fun of the man on the side. I'm not the biggest fan of him. I don't know what he actually adds to the team. He's supposed to be offensively minded, yet we have Kellen Moore for that, unless he goes to the Jags or something. He was gone for that one game, and Dan Quinn was the head coach for that one game, and we actually had a better game. So, I mean, he was following McCarthy's plan, but still, he was the one that ultimately.
Dan Quinn is the defensive coordinator, right?
Yeah, which the rumor is that him or Kellen Moore or both of them will be gone by next season for head coaching gigs and other jobs. Honestly, Dan Quinn, there's a little bit of rumor that he could go to the Broncos, which if he does, I'm excited about that as a Broncos fan as well. And yes, you're allowed to have two favorite teams as long as they're in different conferences. I feel like it's okay. So I root for Cowboys Broncos Super Bowl every year. But McCarthy, if you ever get that wish, you have to dedicate right now to doing that thing that people do where like you vertically split yourself and like you like somehow like custom sew. We'll even get you help, dude. We'll make this happen. Like we can sew half a Cowboys jersey to half of a Broncos jersey. Find a player who find two players that share a number so that we can make that look right. Like you got to go with the face paint, blue and orange halfway down. No, you can't. That's not how dual fandom works. You
have to sit on the 50-yard line, but you should do it backwards so that your Cowboys half is on the Broncos side and your Broncos half is on the Cowboys side. That way you're getting booed by like multiple people.
You just want to see me die. That's all it is. No, if something like that ever happens.
Just hurt, not dead. Don't be ridiculous.
It's always Cowboys in that scenario. It has to be. So
that's fair.
But I just feel like McCarthy doesn't really add a whole lot to the team, in my opinion. He doesn't inspire me to greatness or anything like that. I feel like with the talent this team has had, and there's been a few years in the last like 10 or 15 years that they didn't have talent, but most of the time they've had a lot of really good players, and they never perform. They never show up when it matters. And I've said for years they always play to their competition. This is the first year where I thought that they broke out of that, where they were actually like they were 6-0 in their own division. That's what you're supposed to do. Your division sucks. You should kill all the teams, metaphorically speaking, in your division. And
they had, I think, the weakest division in the NFL, period, this year. I mean,
nope.
In their not
statistically, it has been proven statistically that they are not the worst division of football. I listened to a bunch of numbers last week because that was a big question: was well, this team had 2 teams make the playoffs. It's supposed to be the worst division in football. And they actually showed there was one other division, I forget which one it was, that statistically had teams with worse records and worse stats. They went with like point differential versus all other teams outside of their division and the overall win-loss record. And there was a division that was much, much worse than the NFC East. So I was like, I'll take that one thing away from this season.
That's nice.
Yeah.
On your point about the Cowboys like playing to their opponent and kind of having that really great start, that 6-0 to the season. Going back to what we were just talking about, actually.
Wait, what?
The Cowboys and the Broncos. That was the first game this season that I feel like I remember distinctly being like, oh, there are some cracks in that armor right there. Because like the Denver Broncos, who were, if I remember correctly, pretty trash early in the season, just put a whooping on the Cowboys in like the mid-season game they played.
All right. Well, 2 corrections. The Cowboys lost the first game of the season against.
Oh, that's right, against Tampa Bay. You're right.
You're 3 points, but they looked legitimate.
But they looked so good in that game.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
And that was more Zerline's fault, which is another big issue with the team.
And it's anytime you're down by less than a possession and Tom Brady has the ball and 2 minutes are on the clock, you've already lost that game. Like, it's just, that's what Tom Brady does best.
Yeah, you're right, though. What a boring old storyline. Let's find something new to talk about. Now you made me lose my train of thought. Okay, so yeah, the Cowboys lost the first game of the season, and I think the Broncos were actually 3-3 when we played them. So the Broncos were supposed to be terrible, but at the beginning of the year, they won their first 3 games. So they actually looked pretty decent. Now, that being said, the Cowboys were still supposed to slaughter them. They were absolutely supposed to slaughter them, which I guess that would have been week 8 because they would have been 6-1 at the time. So, yeah, the Broncos literally just played their game, and the Cowboys couldn't do anything to stop it.
That was the first time I remember seeing this season where Dak just did not look good at all. Like again, I feel almost bad because I really do have a lot of respect for Dak as a human being. But as a quarterback, again, as a temporary fan of football or a recent fan or whatever you want to call my situation, watching Dak this year, I definitely saw a lot of the criticisms that I've heard you talk about many Cowboys quarterbacks in the past, where it's just there's a quality about them where it's like if things aren't going right, it just like all crumbles around, and they don't have that Tom Brady magic where they can just be like, oh, no big deal, we're down, I got this, let me put the team on my shoulders and get this done. It constantly seems like there's little mistakes happening, some of them mental, some of them operational, but a lot of them do end up falling on Dak's shoulders, it does seem.
Yeah, and to be fair, since he's been on the Cowboys, I feel like Dak has always at least tried to show up towards, and I feel like he is magnificent in the fourth quarter. Even when we lost in the second round to the Packers, the last game my dad got to see, they were getting slaughtered, and in the fourth quarter, they just kept coming back and kept coming back. So you can't knock him because he always has that drive to go back out there and try to bring the team back. However, I feel like, and it's the last note I wrote on my notes of what's wrong with the Cowboys, I feel like particularly this year, especially in the second half of the season a lot, they weren't showing up until the fourth quarter. Like even yesterday's game, they looked like garbage for the first 3 quarters, and then in the fourth quarter, all of a sudden they could just move the ball wherever they wanted to, and they could keep going as long as they were getting pressure and keeping that pressure back on San Francisco. They were able to drive. And it's frustrating to me because, if it's working, I've been a big proponent all year of doing more hurry up with the Cowboys, because every time they would go to hurry up in the middle of a quarter, they would catch the team off guard and they would get down the field and score. The only issue yesterday was, the defense needed to breathe for a minute, which they talked about in the broadcast. So if you hurry up, then the defense is already back on the field. But the issue is that like you fell behind real quickly. And even though it was only at one point 10-0 and then 13-0, it felt like they were down a lot more than that. Like
it did, but then that also when they did start to show up there at the end, because what did it end up? At one point, they're a 1 possession game, or that's how it ended. Even
yeah,
it was
23-17.
It felt like a bigger mountain to climb, but there is still a part of me, especially in the role I was as like hype man, being like, don't worry guys, we got this. We just, we'll have a better second half, blah, 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 whatever. And that was almost true. But
they had a chance.
We definitely had a chance. And a lot of people are complaining about an aspect that is something that I've heard year in, that even when I'm not watching, I'm aware of because of where I live. But it sounds like to me that the Cowboys have a history of having one extra opponent that all the rest of the teams don't have to play. And that is the umpires, the referees, excuse me. Because they're watching this season, Cowboys get some really fucking weird bad calls, like questionable bad calls. And that last, like, obviously there's the big one at the end with the ref like stumbling as he's placing the ball, and a lot of people were mad about that. I could see I even made the joke that when that ref made the I like tweeted or put this out somewhere, but basically when that last referee made the call of that's the end of the ball game, he got the fuck out of there. Like he knew he was in an open carry state. Like he knew what was up. But ultimately the Cowboys made way too many mistakes themselves to put that blame on, even if that was the worst call in the history of football. That's not the reason you lost the game.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that you can't ever blame the refs for a loss. Like that, if it comes down to one call, that means that you
didn't
weren't
do your
doing
job.
enough. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So, and yes, there have been some bogus calls, especially this year, that the refs have made. But I feel like for the most part, in most games, you'll see an almost equally blown call on the other side, like they're trying to make up for it almost. Because I've seen a few times where I was like, "Oh man, we just got gifted that." So I feel like at times they do try to like even it out. And I don't think it's something that they're like consciously going, I need to pay them back for that. But I'm wondering if in a ref's mind, like, oh man, yeah, I have this huge Jumbotron above me. I completely botched that call, and it's on your mind so that the next time something happens, you're like, yep, this one. And almost like they don't want to make the same mistake for the same team.
My dad is 100% serious that he thinks that the NFL is rigged like wrestling. Now, I will say that I always view my dad as somebody that is like one major instance of something happening in his life where he's just going to move off grid into like a cabin with no Wi-Fi or internet and like the backwoods somewhere. So he's on that sort of like spectrum, but like he is dead ass serious that he thinks that the NFL is rigged for the reasons you just said. And there are times, I mostly think that's a dumb thing to think, but there are times where I'm watching these games and I'm like, oh my God, was there any other reason that should happen other than the fact that they need to do, a TV timeout, or they need to, get some sponsorship, or they just need more people watching this game, so they need to keep it tighter? Because there are definitely instances where you're like, what the fuck was that about?
Or if the game almost gets too out of hand, they blow a penalty on the team that's blowing it out of hand.
Blowing it so that they can bring it back together and make it interesting.
Yeah. I have that thought every once in a while, but I honestly, not just because I'm a Cowboys fan, but I honestly believe that if the NFL was rigged, the Cowboys would be in more Super Bowls. I really do, or they would at least get further, because reasonable. People love to hate on the Cowboys, and then the fan base for the Cowboys is so dramatic and over the top that like it's be good TV. In Survivor, you always have the asshole at least make it to the final five or so, just to make it more entertaining.
Not always, but yeah, I would say wrestling is another good comparison here, because you could book the Dallas Cowboys. There's a lot of teams that you could book as like a big heel, like a bad guy type of thing, somebody that you love, that people love to hate. But you could also eventually have those types of things flip flop, where you get those teams that maybe they were assholes, but they have a redemption storyline, and then when they actually win it, they're like, people are happy for them type of things. But I could see your point. I know we have we've talked about this before, and I disagree with the rest of the nation that the Cowboys are America's team. My opinion is the New England Patriots, not in like, I like the Patriots, but just as I make observations as I travel around, I see more Patriots fans outside of New England, which I to be fair, I don't live there, so that's hard to say for me. But
none of them are inside the state.
But I just mean, like, you see a lot of New England fans pop up everywhere, it seems. Versus, I know there are Dallas Cowboys fans all over the United States as well, but it seems
outside
to me,
the U.S.
It seems to me though that you see again more New England fans at this point, and to be fair, the Dallas Cowboys haven't really done anything noteworthy since the 90s, which we'll talk about again later. But
right, but that team was America's team. Like that was just
the 90s,
moniker.
yes. But
hold up.
Dude, based on how many people watch The Simpsons, like I think that we can pretty fairly say that there's not a lot of people that give a shit now.
I'm just saying that was that team's name. Like
Denver's I understand that. It was a moniker that was given to him. 100%, I understand that.
You can't be America's team because that moniker already belongs to another team.
The moniker they can have, but the truth is it's not true anymore.
That's why people call the Cowboys America's team.
No, I understand. I understand that. I do. I understand the history of it. But that would be like if you say that you have like an 80-year-old guy who is like a boxer, right? And when he was in his prime, they called him the Kid. You can still call him the Kid, but that motherfucker's 80.
But he's still the Kid.
But that's everybody that knew him as the Kid has probably died already or stopped watching.
There's not another wrestler boxer that comes in and gets to use that name then.
Yes, there is.
Blessing. No,
the Kid is often used. Yeah, the new Kid on the block. That's it.
Yeah, I'm talking about like just the idea behind it is
I understand.
You can't just come in and give yourself that name all of a sudden, even though Jason Terry was the Jet and there was another basketball player that used to be the Jet as well. But we won't get into that. So
we'll save that for our Mavericks topic or coverage.
What else is wrong with the Cowboys? Because I got a whole list of stuff and we barely scratched the surface on it. A lot of my notes are about Dak.
Go ahead. Let's dive into Dak.
A lot of my notes are about Dak. I've heard so many people on the radio, like actual sports analysts and people that talk to sports doctors and scouts on the regular, and they say that he doesn't have a lingering feeling. He doesn't have the fear that they say he's fine. But watching him play, he does not look like he's fine. Even before his ankle injury this year, or his calf, whatever it was, he started, like you said, in the Denver game, started looking a little bit off where everyone thought maybe the injury is lingering. But I don't think it was the injury from the year before. I think he honestly did recover from that just fine. I think it looks like it's mental, and they say it's not. Yeah. Like they say they're basically saying you're stupid if you think it's something mental. But watching the way he plays.
And again, I don't know football that well, but it looks 100% mental to me.
He used to have such a quick release where, a split second or two and he throws the ball. And like yesterday, there are times where he was just holding the ball for too long. And it's like he's waiting for somebody to get open. But if they're open for a split second, he either doesn't see him or he's too afraid to throw it. And if he does throw
I'm blinking. What was the game before the Cowboys yesterday? The playoff game.
Oh, the playoff game. Son of a gun. It was the Eagles and the Bucks.
That's right. The Eagles and the Bucks. What you just said reminded me of something they were going over on that game. Is it Jalen Hurts is the quarterback for the Eagles?
Yes.
He looks, for what it's worth, he looks like he's got a lot of promise. He's a young quarterback. He's got potential, but they were going over some analysis with him that was just kind of showing like the difference between him and Tom Brady, which is unfair to begin with.
Yeah.
I saw a stat that Tom Brady this year going into this season has 34 playoff wins, and versus the other 11 playoff quarterbacks combined, they only have 26 playoff wins. So the 11 other playoff quarterbacks have 26 wins versus Tom Brady's 34. So, I mean, again, this is not a fair comparison, but just for the sake of analysis, they would show Tom Brady and how, I mean, it almost seems like it was like on autopilot that he just makes those throws and knows where his receivers will be. And on every single pass they showed, Jalen Hurts would have this like extra bob before he would like throw.
The nervousness.
And that's what it is. It's nervousness. And sometimes you see that it's like, we've even joked, it's like, you wonder which Dak is going to show up today. Because sometimes Dak shows up and he's got that. It's like, oh man, everything's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
And then there's other days where it's like, he's not the same confidence that he normally brings to that huddle and to that line.
It looks like to me at times he's already trying to bail out to the running back or the tight end, and he's not looking downfield. And the Cowboys are regarded as having possibly the best receiving core in football.
I could see it. They've got some studs, dude.
I do think everyone was high on Cedric Wilson playing. I still wish that we would have had Michael Gallup. I wish he would have been healthy because I love Michael Gallup. And some of those throws that Wilson almost caught.
Dude, that one heartbreaker where it was just off his hands. Oh.
I honestly, truly, in hindsight, everything, but I think Gallup would have caught that one.
Yeah.
If he's in the same spot, I think Gallup makes spectacular catches and he's quick. Cedric Wilson, I think, was just a little too excited yesterday. He had a couple points that kind of hurt the team a little bit. But to be fair, both the throws that are coming to mind that he dropped or didn't catch were throws that were very far behind him. And that's on Dak. That is on Dak. Yeah. Romo even said it on the broadcast. And Romo knows about throwing behind people because he did a lot too. He should have thrown it a little bit earlier. And he's just
maybe without that hesitation, Bob, or whatever. Yeah.
And the other thing that's around Dak, the offensive line. This offensive line, they talked about this is only the second game that the starting five have actually been together because of suspensions and injuries and all that. I think the offensive line is hot garbage. It's supposed to be one of the best in football. Tyron Smith, the left tackle, and then the right guard, Zach Martin. Both of them, they're fine. They can stay. They've been great since we drafted them, even though Tyron's starting to get a little old. But I think a real draft need for the Cowboys this upcoming year. I hate drafting offensive linemen in the first round, but every time we've done it, we've got some pretty dang good offensive linemen. I feel like they should spend some draft picks on offensive linemen.
I mean, they don't need receivers. They don't need running backs. They actually have a pretty solid. I mean, we're talking shit about Dak right now, but assuming you're going to stay with Dak, and their backup quarterback ended up doing pretty well with them.
They have to stay with Dak because they paid him. That's my other complaint. Like, you're stuck with Dak. I honestly don't know if I trust Dak anymore after that game yesterday. I legitimately was thinking of the hashtag not my quarterback, but I felt like that was too mean. Oof. And I was just too in the moment. Oof. But you paid him, so you're stuck with him at this point. So it doesn't matter unless you trade him.
Yeah, I don't know about I hear what you're saying on that. I just because of how evil rich Jerry Jones is, I could see him being like, I don't give a shit, pay him anyway, and pay him to not play. But
it hurts the team though because there's a salary cap.
The salary cap,
so then who else do you bring on after that? You can't.
So, but we're with Dak, and then I was just going to comment that their second stream quarterback actually seemed pretty good this year. I don't know football that well, but he came in, covered Dak for a game in the middle of the season. They ended up winning. And for a backup quarterback compared to other backup quarterbacks I've seen play in the league, he looked like he was pretty confident back there.
He played a few times the year before when Dak was hurt, and it wasn't very pretty. I think that Minnesota game was just kind of a perfect storm for him, especially with the catch. I think that was Cooper that caught that game-winning touchdown at the end. That was just kind of a perfect storm for Cooper, and that drove his stock up a lot. But I think if he would have been playing multiple games, it would have gone downhill pretty quickly. He's not a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Okay, that's totally fair. But I would also say that still proves the point that you don't need to waste a first-round pick on a quarterback in this situation.
Oh, yeah. There's not going to be – it's not supposed to be a good class of quarterbacks in the upcoming draft either. So
yeah. And I mean, going on to their defensive side, they've also got a pretty solid defensive crew, it seems. Like, they usually do pretty well there.
I don't know because –
Who would you go with in that regard?
San Francisco was rushing 4 pretty much the whole day against 5 offensive linemen, and they are continually getting pressure on Dak. Dak was also holding the ball too long, which you already talked about. But our front 4, especially when Micah Parsons wasn't in there helping them, seemed like they were almost getting no pressure on Garoppolo. And
it did seem like Dak was constantly throwing from like an uncomfortable position or on the run. And like you said, 49ers did not have to deal with that at all.
And you can't get turnovers, you can, but it's a lot easier to get turnovers if you're getting pressure on the quarterback. Garoppolo only had one bad throw basically yesterday, and luckily there is a cornerback standing right there to catch the ball for an interception. But that cornerback was not on the receiver, and the cornerbacks were having all sorts of trouble keeping up with people yesterday, it seemed like.
There was a really obnoxious 49ers fan at the bar yesterday, and they kept pointing out that the 49ers quarterback was a 2-time Super Bowl champion, which is technically accurate, but he did not play a single snap during any of those seasons.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something to be said about Jimmy G. He had a lot of upswing when he first got traded because he had been studying under the tutelage of Belichick and Brady, so...
I mean, those are as much as you love or hate them. You can't deny that that's 2 pretty good people to be learning from, sitting under the learning tree.
And he looked pretty confident yesterday too. But I feel like the defense, like, and everyone knows that the Cowboys defense is all about turnovers. If you're not getting the turnovers, then your defense isn't doing what it's supposed to. And they had a good defense all year, but the yardage they were giving up was still a little bit high. So that's that mentality of the bend don't break defense, which we saw yesterday because they scored a touchdown the first time, but then they started holding them to field goals. So if the offense was scoring its 31 points per game like they were supposed to, Cowboys would have been fine yesterday. But I feel like as a whole, the defense has needs that you can fill. I mean, I texted you, Leighton Vander Esch had the best tackle possibly of his career yesterday on that fourth down play where he stopped Deebo Samuels for getting the first down.
That was a good start. And Debo's a stud too, dude. He was another fantasy nightmare. If you played against him, I mean.
But I'm saying there's been talks that nobody knows if Vander Esch is even if they're going to re-sign him. So you could get another young linebacker like Micah, but not at the same level because you won't be able to. But just a younger one that's fast and can tackle. Honestly, I would take like 2 more cornerbacks in the draft if I could. I love secondary position. I think it's important to have good ones. And while Trayvon Diggs is starting to develop his traits, he's not going to have 11 interceptions a year. He is not going to make
because next year he's getting 15.
That would break the record. It's so hard to get interceptions in the NFL. I need people that can cover the guy. And Trayvon Diggs gave up a lot of big plays this year. There were times even yesterday where like somebody caught a ball and you saw him trailing him, and it's like still needs not that he can't get better because he's still young too. This is only his second season.
This is going to be too deep of a dig for anybody to laugh but the two of us. But Richie and I play a online game together called Demio, and there's a character that has a maneuver called the 50-50, basically, or the coin flip. Essentially, it's literally a 50-50 chance to either immediately kill an enemy or to do absolutely nothing against them. And I think Trayvon Diggs is the coin flip of cornerbacks in terms of that, because you're 100% right. There's so many times, you even made fun of me. I made a meme about how good he was one time, and then like the next play he just let a touchdown go straight by him.
It was that New England game. He's
all or none, which should technically make him your favorite player.
Yeah, I mean I do like Trayvon Diggs. I want to keep him, but I'm saying some of the other corners, I wouldn't be upset if we got rid of some of them for some younger talent and tried to build a younger, quicker defense. And the safety play, I was okay with the safety play this year, but honestly, if we drafted new guys, I wouldn't necessarily be upset with that. I know, I think it's Malik Hooker has been tweeting about how much he likes the area in Dallas, and everyone's like, "Oh, you should stay." Oh, it's Hooker, one of the other ones I don't remember, but like I'm okay drafting all new defensive backs with the exception of Diggs. I'm okay drafting a new linebacker. My other issue though is like, when Randy Gregory and DeMarcus Lawrence both first came back in the game, and we had Micah Parsons, and all three of them were rushing, like they were getting pressure on the quarterback almost every play. Yesterday, you never saw that. I think I heard DeMarcus Lawrence's name called once outside of penalty situations, and you can't have that.
It's good.
Yeah, it's your job to beat the offensive lineman, and there was only one Pro Bowler on the team, I think, and it was the rookie at left tackle. So that's the whole point of Micah, is they move him around so that they can get him on the weakest guy and get him a straight line to the quarterback, which when Parsons was in, he was getting a little bit of pressure on Garoppolo at times. He was also the one coming back from behind the running back to tackle him for a 1-yard gain, as opposed to the 12-yard games they were getting when he wasn't in there. So I feel like the team had a really good year, but they might have played a little bit above their heads defensively. I don't know. I would be shocked if they maintained that level of defensive play next year. I feel like they're probably going to take a step back and be somewhere in between the worst defense in franchise history from last year and one of the better ones from this year. They'll be somewhere in the middle of that.
Falling in the middle. Fair enough. Any other notes from your list that you want to make sure that we cover, or anything that we've missed about just what went wrong? And I guess we're now kind of talking about what to change to hopefully do better.
Yeah. So I mean, everybody in Cowboys Nation has been saying this, but I have one note that says Pollard needs more touches.
Dude, so everybody loves Zeke, and he was Zeke did well this year, but Pollard was the one that you're like, oh shit, they've got a duo back there, and they bring different assets to the table.
Yeah, Pollard's the quicker one. He's the lightning in the bottle one. But like there were times this season where he returned a kickoff for a touchdown or a punt for a touchdown, whichever one it was.
I thought he was in return one yesterday, dude.
Yeah.
There was a time where he was like giving us hope too.
But see, even that when he was doing that, we had nothing good going on for us on the previous few drives. He returns a kick to the 35-yard line, flag. But then he had one the next time where he returned it to the 30 or the 35. And it's like that little bit from starting at the 20 to 25 to the 30 to 35 doesn't seem like a lot. But when your team had nothing going for it and then he starts doing that, then that's a big deal. And Zeke had a couple of really hard fought, good yardage earning runs yesterday. But not good yardage and running. I mean, just they were good, like inspirational. That one third down play where they only needed a yard or two, and people were hitting him from behind the line, and he was shaking them off and cutting back and forth, and then barely got across the first down line. That's what Zeke does right there. But there comes a point where like Pollard's getting 4 to 6 yards on each carry, then he needs to be the one that's continually getting the carries right there. If you're trying to establish the running game, and he's guaranteeing that every 3 plays you're going to get a first down, then keep using him.
Well, and you could make an argument too for a couple of things that I've heard, from casual chatter amongst fans and whatnot, is a concern for the workload they put on Zeke and his health long term. I could see an argument too that for the style of running back that Zeke is, it would be almost better to, like you said, let Pollard be the one that's like, I guess the main, if you will, and then put Zeke in there occasionally, and he might just bust out a touchdown here and there. But like,
there's a term for that player, and Zeke would never do it, but that's third down running back. So you do the first 2 downs with Pollard, and then when it's 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2, or it's 3rd and goal, and you're on the 3-yard line, then you put Zeke in there because they've been dealing with this fast running back the whole time, and then Zeke's got a little more strength to him. So then you put him in on 3rd down for the short yardage situations. Like I would honestly be okay with that. But
when you say Zeke would never do it, like he is that like considered a demotion in his mind, or why would he never do it?
Just because then you're not the guy, which the Cowboys, again, they paid Zeke. He's going to be the guy.
He's one of the what am I trying to say? Most popular, like in terms of like jersey sales and whatnot. Dak and Zeke were both high up on the list of like top jersey sales this year.
Well, and there you go, right there. But if you're basing your decisions based on what's best for the team on the field, I feel like Pollard should have a few more snaps than Zeke, and that would also help. Save Zeke's body a little bit for the times he is in there. But
that's a good argument.
They won't do that. Zeke's the number one.
Zeke's the guy.
Yep. And let's see. We already talked about cornerbacks can't hang with the wide receivers. I mean, again, the defensive line has to get pressure on the quarterback or you're screwed. And when they finally started getting a little pressure, the Cowboys started getting the ball back a little more. I really feel like, again, watching it, I think all the talk this offseason is going to be about Dak. I really do. I'm not sure if he's got it. There's something in his brain that looks like it's keeping him from doing what he knows he can do. And that's a dangerous thing. If it's something that's mental, like that's not something where you can just take an offseason and fix it necessarily or get over it. And I don't think it's the fear of him thinking he's going to get hurt anymore. It literally looks like he almost gets tunnel vision and he can't see his wide receivers. And again,
he doesn't have, I have a lot of respect for him as a dude and as an athlete, but you can see a big loss in accuracy when Dak throws downfield. He does not have that precision that he does when he's throwing to his tight ends or his running backs, because he can throw a good pass up close, but every time he's throwing long, it always seems like we talked about earlier, he's throwing a little bit behind.
Well, there's that one long throw he took, I think in like the second quarter yesterday, where I'm like, he's throwing it deep. He must have somebody. And then it was 2 San Francisco defenders that were behind or in front of the wide receiver. So I was like, why are you even taking that shot?
What is this? Yeah, like why are we here? Yeah.
Got lucky that they were arguing of who's going to intercept the ball, so neither one of them did.
They just run into each other and fall down.
It just didn't seem like he had his head on straight. Like it looks like he can't see these guys downfield to me. That's just how it appears. So, again, sports talk radio, maybe I'm an idiot, but to the human eye, it looks like there is something wrong with him. And I find it hard to argue against that point.
That's fair.
But I will say, like the last 5 minutes in the fourth quarter of that game yesterday were like highly stressful and highly entertaining.
Let's break that down and then probably call this one good. Because those last 5 minutes were both very, very exciting, and also anxiety inducing. And like,
my heart was racing so much.
There is a nervous energy happening during this thing. And like, we actually, like, part of the gig is like at the end of the game, we're supposed to give away like a prize. And like, I'm like, I don't want to do that if it goes the way that it looks like it might be doing. So like, I'm trying to like also nervously find a time that I can be like, we're going to give away this, big prize that we announced earlier now before you guys have a chance to, get emotional, or start throwing shoes or whatever. Oh my God. I do want to also say there's been several videos popping up of, and honestly, I hate this. I think this is so stupid. Guys, it's a fucking game. Have a good sport about it. We even had fun with our 49ers fans that were there, even the obnoxious ones. But outside of Arlington, at the stadium, there was literal fist fights going down of Cowboys fans beating up San Francisco fans, which is just a shitty thing. I don't want to get a reputation like the fucking Oakland Raiders, dude. Like, yeah, that's shit, dude. Have some class. But it's Arlington, dude. Like, one of the people I met at the sports bar was actually there for the early game and going to the Cowboys game. And about after 2 minutes of talking, I was like, "Oh, you are the type of person who would have a mullet." And he did. Also, when I parked, there's like this obnoxiously large truck that was like taking up multiple lanes that I had to park next to. And I'm like, what a fucking prick. Of course it ended up being his. And on his way out the door, he's like, I sure hope my voice is going to last, because I went to the Kid Rock concert last night and I'm about to go scream my ass off. So let's not make that guy the face of our fucking franchise. Okay.
I just want to say I feel like a page has been turned here, because even if Miles hasn't realized it, you've been using phrases like "are" and "we" when referencing the Cowboys today. So
absolutely, I'm drinking some Kool-Aid with you, brother. It's blue and silver.
We might need to see a doctor, but it makes me a little, if that's my takeaway from this season, if that's the only positive I get from this season, then I guess I got to be good with it.
Dude, if it turns out if I have a huge chance to win a lot of money, if they win a Super Bowl, I am on fucking board.
But yes, the last few moments of that game, everything was a nail biter at the end, which made it entertaining. I just obviously the end with Dak, like I just wanted one chance. I told you I was pretty sure he would throw a pick anyways, but just give us a shot to take one throw down the field. And you took all the energy out.
If it was in fact a predetermined thing, I don't know. I guess it's kind of like the Montreal screw job in a way. Actually, now that I say that out loud, I was going to say it would be better for like the scripted storyline to give him that one last play, I would think. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Again, maybe this is our screw job. I don't know. I'm going back to like, now shit, was my dad right all along?
I'm just worried that people are going to say that's just the Cowboys. The spiking the ball with 0 on the clock. That's just the Cowboys.
That's just it. Yeah. There was that moment. So let's go back to the fourth down call where they're actually doing a review of the chain coming out, which in hindsight now, after we know what happens, just makes it feel so dirty and even hurts more. But they first called that San Francisco had earned a first down, which would have ended the game. It came out when they did the replacement on the footage or whatever. It came out like an inch short or whatever. That's what gave the Cowboys hope. They get all the way down the field. They despite all the penalties,
San Francisco was going to run a play too after that, but then San Francisco had a false start, so it bumped them 5 yards further back.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. They were trying to, I think, get the offsides call maybe, and they ended up getting the penalty on themselves. But yeah, so that set up for this last drive. The Cowboys are out of timeouts. They're moving up the field. And then we get to the moment. There's 14 seconds left on the clock. And this looks like it was the called play. Like my thought is like, okay, maybe this is a my first thought was like, I want to see the review or the replay because maybe this was like Dak was getting pressure and he had no other choice. But this looked like it was the decision to have Dak run up the middle of the field with no chance of getting out of bounds, with no time left on the clock. And then that led to the referee did seem to like stumble. Maybe I don't know if he tripped or if he's just clumsy or what, but it was not a clean positioning of the ball. Like it seemed like if he had done his job better, they would have gotten that spike with 1 second. And that's what a lot of people were, screaming and even throwing trash on the field, which I actually read that Dak at first interpreted that they were throwing trash at like the team. And he was really pissed off about it. And then he found out that they were throwing trash at the umpires. And my understanding is he still wasn't happy about it, but, probably less offended.
All that, yes. But I honestly think it was a design play to get them just a little bit closer so they could take one shot. And you got to go down sooner. You got past the first down marker. You got probably around I don't even remember anymore, probably around the 40-yard line. He can make that throw. Just slide sooner, let go of the ball, and then, as they said, the referee has to touch the ball before you do. So Dak was up there messing with the ball before the umpire was over there. If Dak would have been leaving it alone or handing the ball to the umpire, maybe they could have put the ball down a split second sooner. But either way, he hiked the ball at 0. So it was to me, it was a live play. Just run the play right there.
Yeah, I didn't really have enough understanding of that to know. I guess they could have just tried to do like that schoolyard scramble that so many teams do at the end where it's just start tossing the ball, which they actually kind of did do that sick toss. I think it was to CD Lamb at one point earlier that we never talked about, but it ended up being for nothing. But yeah, your example of like it just like instead of getting the balloon popping, it's like we are blowing up this balloon and we're all excited because it's going to pop and something's going to happen. And then instead they just like let go of the end and it goes.
Mm-hmm. It's all the excitement just got sucked out of the building. And it was such a bad way for the game to end. Like honestly, anytime they don't win, it's bad, but like, at least you could say, man, we had a chance at the end, but the way that it went about, we didn't even leave that little bit of chance in there. We statistically made like the worst decision in a matter of like 2 moments on the scramble and then on spiking the ball, which you've got the play clocks up there. You should see that if it says 1 when you hike the ball, you can't spike it.
Right.
It's going to be at 0.
Right. Yeah. Clock management for sure. I think clock management may have cost them the season.
It's very well did. And, for those that don't know, they could say, well, they have the earpieces. Why doesn't the coach just tell them? I think it's around like 15 or 14 seconds on the play clock. The mic's cut out, so you can't be fed any information at that point.
Oh, weird. I actually did not know that.
It might be at 20. It might be at 25 seconds, which is when the play clock starts. But yeah, the headsets that the quarterbacks wear, where like people are giving them plays and stuff like that, it cuts out before the play ever snaps. That way, it's up to you, and they can't be going, "Hey, there's a guy over here doing this," and then that would be a lot more help than what you should be getting. So there was nobody in Dak's ear saying, "Don't spike it."
It's all up to him at that point. Which honestly, though, he's a quarterback. It's always all up to him on those. Like he should be used to that.
Well, and I heard them talk about this on the post game inside the studio there, that you're supposed to practice some crazy scenario so that you know how to handle it when it happens.
Sure.
And it was somebody that I don't like, and I'm not going to, one of the announcers, but he was absolutely right on this, where he's like, I guarantee you they never practiced this scenario.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, they're absolutely right.
A lot of times, like a lot of the old EA video games would always have in their sports games these really cool challenges where like you had to recreate these famous situations, but like overturn them and make them go the other way. I feel like if they ever brought that back, which I think that was a 2K thing, and now Madden has the exclusive rights on that. But if they were ever to create a video game that was like recreating these moments, this would be an awesome one to do if you got to play this game from the Dallas Cowboys perspective with like a minute left in the game.
30 seconds left.
Yeah, that would be a wild challenge to try to overcome, and I think it'd be kind of cool in that regard.
Yeah, except for when you feel good about winning and then realize that didn't happen in real life.
They didn't do it themselves. Yeah.
So
well, I think we covered a lot of why the Cowboys did what Cowboys do. The other big looming question I have for you, Richie. Next season, Cowboys winning the Super Bowl?
It depends if Brady retires, I guess. The Cowboys always have this thorn in their side, also called Aaron Rodgers, that just doesn't go well for them in the playoffs.
Sure.
It was gonna be a tough road for the Cowboys, even if they won this game. They were gonna have to play Tampa next, which honestly I would have felt okay with them.
We were talking about. I felt much better about them going against Tampa than Green.
And well, you say that, but then all of a sudden, Green Bay will get slaughtered by San Francisco next week, and then you'll be like, "Oh man, what was I worried about?" So I don't know.
I don't know what that matters. That's a team we couldn't beat.
Yeah, maybe San Francisco is just that good. They have been on a hot streak lately, so it all fits in together. It all plays together. But yeah, I'm always hopeful the Cowboys win the Super Bowl every year. My realistic feelings are usually that they're not good enough to do it, or they can't cohesively put everything together to do it. So I'm kind of a pessimist the older I get, I feel like. So they'll have to prove me wrong, and I want them to prove me wrong. For what it's worth, I've been very negative today, but like I love the Cowboys. I want them to win. I'm just so close to it that I'm like hypercritical about every single thing they do.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I think that's going to do it for this week's Best Darn Everything. And I know a lot of you, the three of you that are still listening to this are like, are you guys ever going to talk about The Simpsons again? But hey, we pretty much just did. Because if you think about it, the Cowboys and The Simpsons are basically the same thing. Only, as usual, The Simpsons did it first. They were both good in the 90s and haven't been since. And there's still many suckers or fans that are clinging to hope that they'll get good again one day. Hell, I bet there's even some of the nerdiest of nerds that podcast about both of them.
I feel like the Simpsons have been good since the 90s a little bit.
I do too, but I just like that joke.
Yeah. He probably spent all night writing that one down, ladies and gentlemen.
I woke up this morning. It's fine. We are going to talk about The Simpsons again. In fact, next week we will be coming back and reviewing the episode Skinner's Sense of Snow. In the meantime, Richie, where can they find us online?
You can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off. You can follow myself at TheWiz_Kid23. But most importantly, follow our show at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. So on our way out today, I just want to say, let's go ahead and run up and slide this one out, man.
Okay. Oh shit, it looks like there's already 0 seconds on the clock. So I guess until next time, be cromulent to each other.